I was just trying to fold the laundry when my son's scream tore through the afternoon quiet. And the truth is, it wasn't just a belt strike that shattered our world. It was the final crack in what I'd always called family. My name is Emma, and if you'd told me 6 months ago that I'd be living under my mother's roof again at 32, I would have laughed until I cried. But here I was, folding threadbare towels in the same cramped laundry room where I'd hidden as a child, listening to the familiar creak of floorboards above and trying to convince myself this was temporary. Just until I got back on my feet. Just until the divorce settlement came through. Just until I could afford anything better than this suffocating return to a past I'd spent years trying to escape. Mason, my 5-year-old son, was the only reason I kept breathing. His gap-toothed smile, his endless questions about dinosaurs and space, the way he still reached for my hand when we crossed the street. He didn't understand why we'd left our apartment with the blue walls he'd helped paint, why Daddy wasn't coming with us, why we now slept in the room that used to be mine, with its faded butterfly wallpaper and the window that still wouldn't close properly. The house hadn't changed much in the decade since I'd fled. Same nicotine-stained walls, same plastic-covered furniture that no one was allowed to actually sit on. Same collection of porcelain angels that my mother dusted religiously, while ignoring the rot spreading through her actual family. The smell hit me the moment we'd arrived with our garbage bags of belongings, a mixture of mothballs, cigarette smoke, and something else I couldn't name but recognized in my bones. The smell of a place where love came with conditions and bruises. My sister Rachel still lived here, of course, 28 years old, teaching 3rd grade at the local elementary school, and still sleeping in her childhood bedroom with its parade of participation trophies and faded prom photos. She'd gained weight since I'd last seen her, her face puffy and perpetually flushed, but her eyes were the same, cold, calculating, always watching for weakness. "Look what the cat dragged in," she'd said when we'd shown up that first night. Mason hiding behind my legs. Couldn't make it in the real world, huh? I'd bitten my tongue then, just like I'd learned to do growing up. Keep your head down, don't make waves, survive until you can escape. Only this time, I had Mason to think about. The rules started immediately. No toys in the living room, no snacks outside the kitchen, no TV after 7, no crying. That last one was unspoken but understood. Enforced by sharp looks and sharper words whenever Mason forgot he wasn't in his own home anymore. "Children need discipline," my mother said over dinner that first week, watching Mason push peas around his plate. "That's what's wrong with your generation. Too soft. When you girls were young, you knew better than to waste food." I remembered. I remembered. The wooden spoon, the belt. The hours spent standing in the corner for crimes like spilling milk or talking back or breathing too loudly when she had a headache. I remembered Rachel learning those same lessons, then turning around and practicing them on me when no one was watching. The cycle spinning on and on, violence teaching violence, pain begetting pain. But I'd sworn it would end with me. I'd read the books, taken the classes, learned about gentle parenting and natural consequences and all the ways to raise a child without breaking their spirit. Mason had never been hit, never been screamed at, never been made to feel like his very existence was an inconvenience. Until now. The day it happened started like any other. I was in the basement doing laundry, grateful for the excuse to be alone, even if it meant breathing in decades of mildew. Mason was upstairs, supposedly watching cartoons while I sorted whites from colors and tried not to think about how I'd gone from having my own washer and dryer to begging for laundry privileges in my childhood home. The scream cut through everything. Not a normal child's cry, not the wail of a skinned knee or a broken toy. This was primal. Terror and pain mixed into a sound I'd never heard from my son before, but recognized instantly because I'd made it myself. Decades ago, in this very house. I dropped the laundry basket and ran, taking the stairs 2 at a time, my heart hammering against my ribs. The living room came into view and everything inside me turned to ice. Rachel stood over Mason, my father's old leather belt in her hand. My son was on the floor, curled into a ball, his small hands trying to protect his bottom as she raised the belt again. I told you not to touch the remote, she screamed. You spilled juice all over it. Time slowed. I saw the overturned cup on the coffee table, the spreading orange stain on my mother's pristine white doilies. I saw Mason's face, red and streaked with tears and snot. I saw Rachel's arm coming down again, the belt whistling through the air. I moved without thinking, throwing myself between them. The belt caught me across the shoulder, a familiar sting that sent me spinning back through time. But I wasn't that scared little girl anymore. I was a mother, and someone was hurting my child. Don't you touch him. The voice that came out of me was nothing I recognized, low, dangerous, full of 13 years of suppressed rage. Don't you ever touch my son. Rachel's face went from red to purple. He ruined Mom's remote. Someone needs to teach him. To what? To be afraid, to hate himself, to grow up thinking love comes with bruises. I scooped Mason into my arms, feeling him shake against me. Get away from us. You always were too sensitive, Rachel spat. This is why your marriage failed. Too weak to do what needs to be done. My marriage failed because I married someone just like you. I shot back. Someone who thought fear was the same as respect. But I got out, and I'll be damned if I let you do to my son what was done to us. My mother appeared in the doorway, taking in the scene with those calculating eyes, the belt in Rachel's hand, Mason's tears, my protective stance. For one wild moment, I thought she might actually take my side, might finally see what her brand of discipline had created. What's all this noise? She asked, voice flat. Emma's overreacting, as usual, Rachel said, tossing the belt onto the couch like it was nothing. The boy spilled juice on your remote. I was just teaching him to be more careful. By beating him, my voice cracked. Mom, she was hitting Mason with a belt. Dad's belt. Something flickered across my mother's face. Memory, regret. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by the familiar mask of denial. I'm sure Rachel was just trying to help, she said. You always did blow things out of proportion. Emma, remember when you tried to tell your teacher I was abusing you? Nearly got the family investigated. All that drama over a little discipline. I stared at her, Mason still clinging to my neck. A little discipline I had welts for weeks. And you turned out fine, didn't you? My mother moved into the room, straightening the coffee table, dabbing at the juice stain, always more concerned with appearances than reality. Rachel's a teacher. She knows how to handle children. She's right, Rachel chimed in, that smug smile I remembered so well spreading across her face. Maybe if you disciplined Mason properly, he wouldn't be such a brat. He's not a brat, I said through gritted teeth. He's 5 years old. He spilled juice. It was an accident. Accidents have consequences, my mother said, still focused on her precious doily. That's how children learn. He'll learn to hide, I said, to lie, to hate himself. Is that what you want? I want... My mother finally looked at me, and her eyes were as cold as I remembered. A peaceful house. You're here on my charity. Emma, you and your son. The least you can do is follow our rules. Your rules include child abuse. The word hung in the air like a bomb. My mother's face went white, then red. How dare you, she hissed. After everything I've done for you, taking you in when you couldn't hack it on your own, putting a roof over your ungrateful head, and you accuse us of abuse. It is abuse, I said, my voice steadier now. Mason had stopped crying, but I could feel him trembling against me. And if it happens again, I'll call the police. Rachel laughed, ugly and sharp. And tell them what that I disciplined your out-of-control kid. I'm a teacher. Emma, an upstanding member of the community. You're a divorced single mother living off her family's charity. Who do you think they'll believe? Besides, my mother added, you wouldn't dare. Can you imagine what that would do to Rachel's career, to our family's reputation? You want to ruin your sister's life over a little discipline. I looked between them. These two women who shared my blood but had never shared my pain, who had twisted love into something sharp and cutting, then wondered why I bled. You ruined my life years ago, I said quietly. Both of you. I won't let you ruin his. That night, dinner was a silent war. Rachel stabbed at her meatloaf like it had personally offended her. My mother's mouth was a thin line of disapproval, and Mason wouldn't eat at all, just pushed food around his plate with that thousand-yard stare I recognized from my own reflection in childhood. I tried to coax him. Just a few bites, baby. For me, children eat what they're given, my mother interjected. In your day, children were property. I cut her off. Things have changed. Not in my house. They haven't. She turned to Mason. You'll sit there until you clean your plate, young man. We don't waste food in this family. Mason's lower lip trembled. I'm not hungry. Then you'll be hungry until breakfast, my mother decreed. And there'll be no snacks, no matter how much you cry to your mother. I started to protest, but caught the look in her eye. The same look she'd had when she'd locked me in my room for talking back. When she'd thrown away my favorite doll because I'd forgotten to make my bed. The look that said she held all the power, and I had none. So I stayed quiet, hating myself for it. Later, after everyone had gone to bed, I snuck Mason a peanut butter sandwich and held him while he ate it in the dark. Mommy, he whispered, why did Aunt Rachel hit me? How could I explain generational trauma to a 5-year-old? How could I tell him that some people learned love through pain and never figured out there was another way? Some people don't know how to handle big feelings, I said finally. So they hurt others instead. But that's not okay, baby. It's never okay to hit someone, especially someone smaller than you. I'll be good, he promised, and my heart cracked. I'll be really good so she won't hit me again. Oh, baby. I pulled him closer, breathing in his little boy's smell of dirt and dreams. This isn't about being good or bad. You're perfect just as you are. Aunt Rachel was wrong to hit you. Grandma was wrong not to stop her. None of this is your fault. But even as I said the words, I knew he wouldn't believe them. Just like I hadn't believed them when my mother said them. On the rare occasions when she bothered to apologize. The damage was already starting. Those first cracks in his sense of self, in his understanding of love and safety and home. I lay awake that night planning. The divorce settlement was still months away. My credit was shot. I had no job, no money, nowhere to go. But I couldn't stay here, not with Mason. Not when every day brought new opportunities for them to break him the way they'd broken me. The next few days were a careful dance. I kept Mason close, finding excuses to take him with me everywhere, to the grocery store, to the park, to sit in the car in random parking lots, just the two of us, eating drive-through nuggets and pretending we were on an adventure. But I couldn't watch him every second, and Rachel was always there, waiting. I caught her pinching him when she thought I wasn't looking, heard her hissing threats in his ear, saw the way he flinched when she entered a room, the way he went silent and still like a rabbit sensing a predator. You're being paranoid, my mother said when I confronted her. Rachel would never hurt him intentionally. She already has. That was discipline, not hurt. Honestly, Emma, you need to stop being so dramatic. It's no wonder David left you. The mention of my ex-husband was a calculated blow. And it landed. David, who'd seemed so charming until the ring was on my finger. Who'd started with words before moving to shoves, then slaps, then worse. Who'd convinced me I was crazy, overreacting, too sensitive. Right up until the night he'd thrown me down the stairs and I'd finally seen the pattern. The same pattern I'd grown up with, just wearing a different face. David left because I finally stood up to him, I said. Just like I'm standing up to you. My mother laughed, but there was no humor in it. Standing up to me. You're living in my house, eating my food, using my electricity. You have nothing, Emma. You are nothing without family. Then I'll be nothing, I said, but I'll be nothing on my own terms. That night, Mason woke up screaming, night terrors, the kind he hadn't had since he was 3. I held him while he thrashed and cried, whispering soothing nonsense until he finally calmed. I dreamed Aunt Rachel was chasing me, he whispered, with the belt. And I couldn't run fast enough. Just a dream, baby. I lied. Just a bad dream. But we both knew it wasn't. The monster under his bed had a face now, and it looked like family. The breaking point came a week later. I'd gotten a call about a job interview, nothing fancy, just a cashier position at a grocery store. But it was evening shift and would let me put Mason in daycare during the day. A first step toward freedom. I'd made the mistake of being happy about it, of humming while I made lunch, of letting my guard down. Rachel was watching Mason while I was in the shower. Just 10 minutes. What could happen in 10 minutes? Everything, as it turned out. I heard the crash first, then Mason's scream, different from before. Not just fear, but pain. Real pain. I ran out in my towel, soap still in my hair, to find Mason on the kitchen floor, Rachel standing over him with a wooden spoon in her hand. His arm was bent at an odd angle, and there was blood on the linoleum. He was climbing on the counter, Rachel said, not even looking at me. I told him to get down. He didn't listen. You pushed him, Mason sobbed. You pushed me. Liar, Rachel snapped. I was trying to get you down safely. You fell because you were being disobedient. I didn't think. I just moved. Snatched the spoon from her hand and threw it across the room. Scooped Mason up, careful of his arm. We're going to the hospital, I said. Don't be ridiculous. My mother appeared, as she always did when things got loud. He's fine. Children fall all the time. His arm might be broken. Then put some ice on it. We don't air family business in public. Emma, you know that. Family business. The sacred code of silence that had protected abusers in this house for generations. Don't tell. Don't ask for help. Don't let anyone see the rot beneath the surface. Screw family business, I said. Screw all of this. We're leaving. Where? Rachel sneered. You have nowhere to go. No money, no job. You'll be back by nightfall, begging for forgiveness. Maybe she was right. Maybe I'd end up sleeping in my car with my son. Another statistic, another failure. But as I looked at Mason's tear-stained face, at the way he cradled his injured arm, I knew with bone-deep certainty that anywhere was better than here. Watch me, I said. I threw our things into garbage bags while Mason sat on the bed, whimpering softly. My mother stood in the doorway, alternating between threats and manipulation. You're being selfish. Think of Mason. He needs stability. He needs safety. I'll cut you off completely. No inheritance, no help, nothing. You cut me off years ago. I just didn't realize it. You'll regret this. When you're homeless, when child services takes him away, you'll remember this moment. I paused in my packing to look at her. Really look at her. This woman who'd given birth to me but had never learned how to love without hurting. Who'd been so damaged by her own upbringing that she'd pass that damage on like a cursed heirloom. I already have a lifetime of regrets, I said, but protecting my son won't be one of them. We left with 3 garbage bags, a broken arm, and no plan beyond getting away. My ancient Honda struggled to start, coughing black smoke like it was protesting this latest indignity. Mason sat in the back seat, his good arm clutching his dinosaur, the one toy I'd managed to grab. Where are we going, Mommy? I met his eyes in the rearview mirror. Somewhere safe, baby, I promise. It was a promise I had no idea how to keep, but I'd figure it out. I had to. The emergency room was bright and sterile and blessedly neutral. The nurse who checked us in had kind eyes and gentle hands, and she didn't push when I was vague about how Mason had fallen. But the doctor was more persistent. This looks like a pushing injury, she said, studying the x-rays. The angle of the break, the location of the bruising. Is there anything you want to tell me? I opened my mouth to lie, to protect family business like I'd been trained to do. Then I looked at Mason, small and pale in the hospital bed, and the words came pouring out. My sister pushed him. She's been hitting him with a belt. My mother knows and doesn't care. I tried to protect him, but I failed, and now we have nowhere to go, but I can't take him back there. I can't. The doctor's expression didn't change, but something in her posture softened. You didn't fail, she said quietly. You got him out. That's the hardest part. She called in a social worker, a tired-looking woman named Janet who'd clearly seen too much but still managed to radiate compassion. I told her everything. The belt, the threats, the generations of violence dressed up as discipline. "Do you have documentation?" Janet asked. "Photos, recordings, anything." I shook my head, feeling stupid. I didn't think. I was just trying to survive each day. "That's understandable, but it'll make things harder. Your sister's a teacher. 3rd grade, everyone loves her. She's teacher of the year." Janet's mouth tightened. They often are. The worst abusers are often the most charming in public. But we'll document everything from today: the break, the bruises, Mason's statement. It's a start. "What happens now?" "First, we get you somewhere safe. There's a family shelter about 20 minutes away. It's not fancy, but it's clean and secure. They can help with emergency services, job placement, childcare. After that..." She paused. "Do you want to press charges?" The question I'd been avoiding: taking family business public, breaking the code of silence that had protected monsters in my family for generations. "Yes," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. "Yes, I do." The shelter was indeed not fancy. A converted motel with thin walls and the perpetual smell of industrial disinfectant. But our room had 2 beds and a lock on the door. And that was all that mattered. Mason's cast was bright blue. His choice. He'd been brave during the setting, only crying a little. And the nurse had given him a sticker that said "superhero" that he wore like a medal. "Is this our new home?" he asked, looking around the sparse room. "For now," I said. "Just until Mommy figures things out." "I like it," he decided. "Aunt Rachel can't find us here." My phone had been buzzing nonstop since we'd left. Texts from my mother ranging from concerned to threatening. Voicemails from Rachel calling me dramatic, selfish, insane. I saved them all. Documentation, like Janet had said. That night, after Mason was asleep, I sat on the thin motel carpet and made lists. What we needed, what I could sell, what jobs I could apply for. The math was brutal. Even with the shelter's help, I'd need money soon. The divorce had wiped out my savings, and my mother had been right about one thing: I had nothing. But nothing was still better than something, if that something came with violence. I found work faster than expected. Night shift at a 24-hour grocery store, stocking shelves while Mason slept at the shelter's childcare. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I added a second job doing data entry from the shelter's computer lab. Slowly, painfully, I started saving. The other women at the shelter understood without being told. We were all running from something, all trying to build new lives from the ashes of old ones. There was Maria, whose husband had broken her jaw. Keisha, whose boyfriend had threatened to kill her kids. Amy, whose father had done things that made my childhood look like a fairy tale. We watched each other's kids, shared resources, celebrated tiny victories like they were major triumphs, which they were, really. Every day we survived was a triumph. But I couldn't let go of the anger. It burned in me constantly. This rage at my mother and sister who were still out there, living their lives, probably telling everyone how ungrateful I was, how I'd overreacted, how I'd torn the family apart over nothing. So I started documenting everything I could remember, every beating from childhood, every cruel word. Every time my mother had looked the other way, I took photos of Mason's healing bruises, recorded his nightmares, kept a journal of every symptom of trauma he displayed. "You're building a case," Janet said when I showed her my growing file. "Good. But Emma, I need you to understand something. Your sister is a teacher. Your mother is a respected member of the community. This won't be easy." "I know," I said. "But someone needs to stop them. If not for Mason, then for the next kid. Rachel has access to dozens of children every day. How many of them has she hurt? How many parents have been too scared to speak up?" Janet's expression was grim. "More than you'd think. Teachers who abuse rarely have just one victim. But proving it is hard. Kids are scared to talk. Parents don't want to rock the boat. The system protects its own. Then I'll rock the whole damn boat until it capsizes. The first meeting with the prosecutor was a disaster. He was young, overworked, and clearly skeptical. So your sister disciplined your son one time, and you want to press assault charges? She beat him with a belt. She pushed him off a counter and broke his arm. According to her, he fell while climbing where he shouldn't have been. And the belt incident, was there anyone else present? Any witnesses? My mother. Who will testify that it was normal discipline? I'm guessing. He sighed. Look, Ms. Patterson, I sympathize, but without more evidence, this is a she said, and your sister has an exemplary record, not even a parking ticket. You, on the other hand, have a protective order against my ex-husband. I know how it looks. Like a pattern of instability. Like maybe you're prone to exaggeration. Like maybe you're trying to punish your family for not supporting you after your divorce. I wanted to scream, to cry, to grab him by the shoulders and make him understand that repeat victims weren't unstable. They were targeted. That abusers could smell damage like sharks smelled blood. That my sister's clean record just meant she'd never been caught. Instead, I pulled out my phone. I have texts, voicemails, my mother admitting she knows Rachel hits children but doesn't see it as a problem. He perked up slightly. Let me hear them. I played the worst ones. My mother's voice, cold and dismissive. A little discipline never killed anyone. You turned out fine, didn't you? Stop being so dramatic. Emma, you're going to ruin Rachel's career over nothing. Rachel's voice, angry and entitled. That brat needed to learn. If you were any kind of mother, you'd thank me for doing your job. The prosecutor listened, his expression shifting from skeptical to thoughtful. It's not enough for criminal charges, he said finally. But it might be enough for a restraining order. And I'll notify the school district. They'll have to investigate. It was something. Not justice, not yet, but something. The investigation was brutal. Rachel painted me as a bitter, unstable sister, jealous of her success. My mother backed her up, telling anyone who'd listen that I'd always been troubled, prone to lies and exaggeration. But Janet had been right. Rachel wasn't as careful at school as she'd been at home. Once the investigation started, other parents came forward. Little things they'd noticed but hadn't wanted to make a fuss about. Red marks on wrists. A child who'd become suddenly fearful. Reports of Ms. Patterson's strict discipline that had seemed harsh but not quite crossing the line. One parent, braver than the rest, admitted her daughter had told her about Miss Patterson hitting a student with a ruler. She'd thought the girl was exaggerating. Kids did that, right. But now, the dominoes started falling. I wasn't there when they suspended Rachel, but I heard about it from everyone. How she'd screamed that it was all lies, that I'd poisoned people against her, that she was being persecuted for maintaining standards in a world gone soft. My mother called that night, her voice shaking with rage. How could you, your own sister, your own family? She's lost everything because of your lies. They're not lies, and you know it. She was trying to help. That's all she's ever done. Try to help, and you've destroyed her life over it. She destroyed her own life the moment she decided hitting children was acceptable. And you helped by letting her. I should have hit you more, my mother spat. Maybe then you'd have learned respect, loyalty, family values. The only thing I learned from being hit, I said calmly, was how to take a punch, how to hide bruises, how to lie to protect the people hurting me. Is that what you wanted to teach? I wanted to teach you to be strong. No, you wanted to teach me to be silent. There's a difference. She hung up on me. It would be the last time we spoke for years. The civil trial was harder than I'd expected. Rachel had hired a good lawyer, one who painted me as vindictive and mentally unstable. They brought up my divorce, my financial struggles, even a bout of postpartum depression I'd had after Mason was born. Isn't it true, Ms. Patterson, that you've been diagnosed with anxiety and depression? Yes, largely as a result of childhood trauma. Or perhaps you're simply prone to seeing abuse where none exists. Perhaps your mental illness colors your perception. I wanted to shrink into myself, to disappear like I'd learned to do as a child. But then I saw Mason in the gallery, sitting with Janet, his cast covered in drawings from the other shelter kids. My son, my reason, my strength, my mental illness, I said clearly, is a direct result of growing up in an abusive household. It's not a weakness, it's proof of survival. And it doesn't make me a liar. If anything, it makes me more aware of the signs of abuse. I know what it looks like because I lived it. My lawyer had found other witnesses, former students of Rachel's who were now adults, willing to testify about her discipline methods. A parent who'd pulled their child from her class after mysterious bruises appeared. A fellow teacher who'd reported concerns years ago, only to be told she was overreacting. The most damning testimony came from Mason himself. He was so small in the witness chair, his feet not even touching the floor. But his voice was clear as he described what Aunt Rachel had done. How she'd hit him with the belt. How she'd pushed him off the counter. How Grandma had said it was okay because he needed to learn. "Were you being bad?" Rachel's lawyer asked, trying to establish provocation. I spilled juice. Mason said simply, "It was an accident. Mommy says accidents happen and that's okay. But Aunt Rachel said I was a bad boy who needed to be punished." "And how did that make you feel?" Mason was quiet for a long moment. Then, scared and sad, because I thought maybe she was right. Maybe I was bad, but Mommy says I'm not bad. She says I'm perfect just how I am. And I believe her. I had to leave the courtroom so he wouldn't see me cry. The verdict came down on a Thursday. Liable for assault. Restraining order granted. Damages awarded, though not much. Rachel would never teach again. Her license revoked after the school board's investigation found multiple instances of inappropriate physical discipline. It should have felt like victory, justice, vindication. Instead, I just felt empty, tired. Like I'd been fighting so long I'd forgotten how to do anything else. We moved out of the shelter and into a tiny apartment. 1 bedroom, bars on the windows, neighbors who played music too loud. But it was ours. Mason picked out shower curtains with cartoon sharks. I hung his drawings on the refrigerator. We ate dinner at a card table I'd found at Goodwill and called it our feast table. "Are we safe now?" Mason asked one night as I tucked him into his toddler bed that took up most of the bedroom. "Yes, baby, we're safe. Forever. Forever." But safety, I was learning, was more than just physical distance from the people who'd hurt us. It was Mason flinching when someone raised their voice. It was his anxiety about spilling things, breaking things, being bad. It was my own hypervigilance, the way I still checked locks obsessively and planned escape routes from every room. Therapy helped. Twice a week for both of us, learning to rewire the patterns trauma had carved into our brains. Mason learned that accidents were okay, that anger didn't mean violence, that love wasn't supposed to hurt. I learned that protecting my child didn't make me dramatic or difficult. It made me a good mother. The healing wasn't linear. There were setbacks, nightmares, meltdowns in grocery stores when Mason saw someone who looked like Rachel, days when the weight of starting over felt too heavy to bear. But there were good days too, more and more of them. Mason made friends at his new school. I got promoted to shift supervisor, then assistant manager. We moved to a better apartment, one with a tiny balcony where we grew tomatoes in pots. 2 years after we'd fled my mother's house, a letter arrived. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. "Emma," it read. "Rachel is in therapy now. She's working on her anger. She wants to apologize. We both do. Family should forgive. It's what God wants. Please come home. Love, Mom." I read it 3 times, then showed it to my therapist. "How does it make you feel?" she asked. "Angry," I admitted. "They're only sorry because there were consequences, because Rachel lost her job and her reputation. If I'd kept quiet, they'd still be doing the same things." "That's probably true. So, what do you want to do?" I thought about it for a long time. about forgiveness and family and the weight of generational trauma, about cycles and breaking them, about what I wanted to teach my son. In the end, I wrote back a single paragraph. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, it isn't pretending the harm never happened, and it certainly isn't putting Mason back in danger. Rachel is a child abuser. You enabled her. Those are facts that therapy doesn't erase. We've built a good life without you. We're happy, we're healthy, we're free. That's my forgiveness, that I don't waste energy hating you anymore. But that's all you get. Don't contact us again. I mailed it and felt something lift from my shoulders. Not forgiveness, exactly, but release. The understanding that I didn't owe them anything, not my pain, not my anger, not my presence. I'd given them decades of my life. They didn't get any more. Mason is 7 now. He plays soccer and builds elaborate Lego cities and reads chapter books about kids who go on adventures. His cast is long gone, but he kept it, decorated with all those drawings and stickers. Sometimes I find him looking at it, running his fingers over the faded decorations. Do you remember, I asked him once? A little, he said. I remember being scared. I remember you saving me. You saved yourself too, I told him, by telling the truth, by being brave. Are they still out there, Grandma and Aunt Rachel? Yes, but they can't hurt us anymore. What if they try? Then we'll stop them, just like we did before. But Mason, most people aren't like them. Most people don't hurt children. Most families love without pain. He nodded, processing this. Our family loves without pain. Yes, baby, we do. And we did. Our little family of 2. Building something new from the ashes of something broken. It wasn't the family I'd grown up in, with its suffocating rules and violent corrections. It was something better. Something chosen. Something safe. The nightmares still come sometimes. I dream I'm back in that house, folding laundry while my mother lists my failures. I dream Rachel is chasing Mason with the belt while I run in slow motion, unable to reach him. I dream of all the children she might have hurt before we stopped her, the ones who didn't have someone to speak up. But then I wake up in our apartment with its shark shower curtains and tomato plants, and I hear Mason breathing safely in the next room. And I remember, we got out. We survived. We won. Not the kind of winning that comes with fanfare and celebration, the quiet kind, the kind measured in small victories and ordinary days, in bedtime stories without fear, in spilled juice that's just a mess to clean up, not a crime to be punished, in the freedom to make mistakes without violence. My mother was wrong about so many things, but she was right about one. I did turn out fine. Not because of the hitting, but in spite of it. Not because violence made me strong, but because surviving it taught me what strength really was. Strength was leaving when every practical voice said to stay. Strength was choosing my son's safety over family approval. Strength was building a new life from nothing but garbage bags and determination. Strength was teaching Mason that love doesn't hurt, even when I was still learning it myself. The last time I drove past my mother's house, it looked smaller than I remembered. The windows were dark, the yard overgrown. I heard from someone that Rachel had moved back in after losing her teaching job, that the 2 of them lived there together now. 2 bitter women convinced the world had wronged them. I didn't slow down, didn't feel the pull of old trauma or unfinished business. That house had no power over me anymore. It was just a building where bad things had happened. And I'd lived through worse than bad things. I'd lived through believing I deserved them. Mason was in the back seat, singing along to the radio, his voice high and sweet and unafraid. I caught his eye in the rearview mirror and he grinned, gap-toothed and glorious. Love you, Mommy. Love you too, baby. So much. And that was the real victory. Not the court case or the restraining order or the justice that came too late to undo the damage. The real victory was this: a child who knew love without fear, who trusted without reservation, who believed he was worthy of gentleness. The cycle was broken, not bent, not paused, but shattered completely. It had taken everything I had and things I didn't know I possessed, but I'd done it. We'd done it. We were free.